Tonight, many of America's farmers already feeling the pinch are worried about the possibility of more challenges.
Right now, America's farmers are living through a catastrophe. Their fields are ready for harvest, but the buyers are gone. Grain silos are overflowing. Perishable dairy shipments sit spoiling on docks. And China? They've officially backed out. In just 6 weeks, U.S. agricultural exports to China have nosedived by 28%. For sorghum producers, the blow is catastrophic. A staggering 94.4% drop. That's not a downturn. It's devastation. While the federal government stays quiet, farmers are left with an impossible decision. Cut their losses and harvest anyway, or let their life's work crumble. This isn't just a rough patch, it's the unraveling of a cornerstone American industry, and it's happening in plain sight. The collapse came swiftly, and the numbers are damning. A 28% drop in exports to China in just over a month isn't a warning, it's a fire alarm. Sorghum farmers were hit hardest. A trade once thriving has now all but vanished. Shipments went from 1.44 million metric tons in early 2023 to just 78,000 this year, a crash of over 94%. What's behind it? China's retaliatory tariffs, now topping 125%, have made American grain unviable in the world's largest market. But sorghum is only the beginning. In California, at the Port of Oakland, a key artery for chilled agricultural exports, shipments of almonds and dairy have fallen by 40%. Trucks are at a standstill. Containers sit idle. And worst of all, the buyers have moved on. China isn't waiting. They've already sealed long-term trade deals with Brazil and Argentina. Years in the making, these deals aren't disappearing anytime soon. This isn't a one-crop issue, it's a domino effect. In Washington state, hay exporters are cutting 25% of their staff because orders disappeared overnight. One supplier summed it up. One day, we had contracts. The next, silence. This scene is repeating across the nation. Soybean futures tumbled 14% in early 2025, just as Brazil's exports to China soared 25%. What we're witnessing isn't a lull. It's a seismic shift in global trade. Meanwhile, Washington's response has been superficial. All rhetoric, no real action. Promises of aid sound hollow when the underlying issue, access to markets, goes unaddressed. The administration says this trade war is meant to create leverage. The data says the opposite. Before tariffs, China bought over 90% of our sorghum. Now that channel is gone, no amount of aid can restore it. This isn't just about losses, it's about what comes next. With every cargo canceled and every shipment abandoned, America falls further behind. Brazil didn't edge out the U.S. overnight. It took years of planning, investment, and strategy. Now those foundations are locked in. If Washington thinks reversing tariffs will bring buyers back like flipping a switch, they're ignoring reality. Patriotism can't pay bills. This farm crisis is bleeding into the ports, the very infrastructure that moves American agriculture around the world. Oakland, once the bustling hub of cold exports, is grinding to a halt under the weight of these tariffs. Shipments are way down, and that decline isn't just about paused trade. It's about real lives. Dock workers, drivers, warehouse crews, all are taking the hit. Oakland's import-export ratio is normally balanced 50-50. That makes it uniquely sensitive to disruption. China alone accounts for 29% of the port's trade. When that vanishes, the fallout is fast and brutal. Containers that should be filled with beef, almonds, and dairy are sitting empty. Contracts are being voided mid-transit. Exporters are left scrambling to reroute what they can. One Washington-based hay producer axed 25% of their workforce in just 14 days. Another exporter was stuck watching 6,400 metric tons of wood pulp sit unmoved in storage, collecting costly fees. A 90 metric ton shipment already en route to China? Now it's facing abandonment. The economics are brutal. Shipping at a loss is now common, and with freight prices surging, even that won't last much longer. But the disaster isn't just about profit margins. It's about dismantling supply chains that took decades to build. Since the latest round of tariffs, 68 scheduled freight sailings have been canceled, what the industry calls blank sailings. Each one means a lot more than a missed delivery. It means trucks parked, cranes unused, and entire crews without pay. Executives at the ports are raising alarms. This slowdown isn't just a blip, it's a long-term realignment. "We can't keep bleeding like this," one exporter said. "Eventually, it all just stops." And the pain isn't isolated to the West Coast. Across the country, farm exporters are hitting the same wall. Rising fees, collapsing demand, and zero clarity on what to expect. New port surcharges, $1.5 million per Chinese vessel, were intended to punish Beijing, but they're hitting American exporters instead. Though bulk grain was exempt, high-value containerized goods like poultry, dairy, and beef were not. These make up over half of U.S. farm export revenue, and now they're under siege. The domino effect can't be overstated. When a hay company lays off workers, that blow hits more than just the employees. It hits truckers, equipment dealers, small-town grocery stores. The entire local economy feels it. The longer this crisis drags on, the deeper the damage gets. Ports can't instantly pivot. Foreign buyers won't wait. And every lost week means another step backward in global relevance. At this point, the question isn't if the trade war is hurting farmers. It's how much of the industry will still be left when this ends. Bailouts are coming, just like last time. The administration is hinting at another round of checks to help farmers stay afloat. But it's a short-term patch on a gaping wound. On the ground, nobody's celebrating. They've seen this cycle before. Aid may keep the lights on for one more season, but it doesn't restore trust, doesn't rebuild deals, and it doesn't make foreign buyers forget they were once burned. In Iowa, corn is being planted despite known losses. In Kentucky, farmers are debating whether to harvest at all. This isn't agriculture for profit, it's emergency care. The White House keeps pushing money. But what farmers are pleading for isn't cash, it's customers. Without stable markets, logistics, and international demand, even the biggest bailout is just postponing collapse. The pressure has reached a boiling point. The National Farmers Union and the American Soybean Association, groups that rarely agree, are now united. They're calling for Congress to curb the president's tariff powers. It's the first time in years these groups are supporting legislation that demands congressional checks on trade policy. Their message is blunt. This strategy isn't just failing, it's accelerating the collapse. And again, the data backs them. Tariffs from China, Canada, and the EU haven't just shrunk U.S. exports. They've flooded the domestic market with excess. Prices are falling. When China suddenly canceled a 12,000-ton pork order, its biggest since 2020, the result wasn't just a revenue hit, it was rotting inventory. And while farmers take the hit, big food corporations are thriving. Processors and distributors are raking in profits, while those growing the crops are stuck between rising costs and plunging revenue. Here's the cruel twist. Tariffs were pitched as a shield for farmers. Instead, they've handed the keys to corporate middlemen. Small and mid-sized farms are folding. Agribusiness giants are adapting, relocating supply lines to safer havens. Meanwhile, the food system keeps consolidating into fewer, more powerful hands. Grocery prices are up 18% year over year. But farmer income, still dropping. These policies aren't protecting farms. They're concentrating control and bleeding the countryside dry. For years, U.S. farm policy incentivized overproduction, depending on international buyers to take the surplus. But now that those markets are drying up, the entire model is failing. 40% of corn, wheat, and soy producers say they can't stay profitable without exports. Handouts won't fix that. And vague assurances of winning the trade war aren't helping. The true cost of this isn't just economic, it's generational. It may take decades to rebuild what's being lost right now. Trust. Because in global trade, crops are secondary. What matters is consistency. Each abandoned shipment, each missed delivery sends a message that American ag can't be relied on. look at China's shift to Brazil. It didn't happen overnight. It took 3 years of infrastructure investment, government financing, and relationship building. Now, that foundation is set and excludes the United States. Reversing that would mean fighting against a system tailor-made to cut us out and doing it from a weaker position. The world doesn't pause while the U.S. figures out trade strategy. When a buyer leaves, they don't come back. Already, the signs are flashing red. Farm-focused banks are reporting rising defaults, restricted credit, and anxious lenders. Farmers who once secured decade-long contracts with global clients are now watching those buyers sign with competitors in Argentina and Brazil. You can't bail out trust, one grain trader said, after losing a third major account. He's right. Checks may offer temporary relief, but they don't rebuild the networks that took decades to form. And time is running out. Every month without a shift in policy cements these structural changes. Sorghum is nearly wiped out, once 90% dependent on Chinese markets. Now, nearly worthless. Soybeans are next, with Brazilian shipments to China surging while U.S. prices plummet. This isn't a small shift. It's a fundamental reordering of who feeds the world. And America is being written out. All of this? Completely avoidable. U.S. farm policy for decades has driven overproduction while betting on foreign markets. But with those buyers gone, the strategy is falling apart. Nearly half of grain producers admit they can't break even now, and Washington keeps applying the same failed methods: tariffs, bailouts, talking points. This is no longer about lost revenue, and it's about eroding the core of an entire system. When trust disappears, trade doesn't just decline, it vanishes. And when that happens, no speech or bailout can bring it back. So the question isn't whether farmers can scrape by this year. It's whether U.S. agriculture will even have a place in the new global order. Right now, the rest of the world is moving forward, with or without American producers. This isn't just a trade dispute anymore. It's a full-blown reckoning. What's unfolding in the Midwest isn't about subsidies. It's about survival. And the data paints a grim picture. Exports crumbling, supply chains dissolving, livelihoods shattered. Behind every statistic are real people, farmers watching their dreams evaporate, port crews laid off, rural towns collapsing. And still, D.C. treats this like a chess match. But trade wars don't end with a win. They end with realignment, new systems, new players. China isn't easing off. They're building new supply routes, and they don't include us. Brazil and Argentina aren't backups. They're the future. Each passing day without a true fix locks that future in even tighter, and we're running out of time. This crisis isn't just about economics. It's about national food security, rural stability, and our country's standing on the world stage. What farmers are demanding isn't another check. It's a seat at the table. They want markets. They want trade policies that treat agriculture as vital, not as leverage. Without that, no amount of federal dollars will stop the decline. If you found this alarming, hit that like button. The truth needs to be heard. Share this with everyone who cares about food, farms, and our future. And subscribe. Blue Wave News. We break down the stories the corporate media ignores, and we hold the powerful to account. This isn't just another news cycle, it's a turning point. Stay informed, tap subscribe.